Hey everybody, welcome back to the Conscious Love Show. Before we jump into today's episode, I have one question for you. Would you like to improve your meditation skills? Or what about breath work? Would you like to learn how to use breath work better? Well, I want to tell you about an app that I am absolutely falling in love with. It's called the Aura app, and all in one place, you can get access to thousands of meditations, hundreds of breathwork teachers. In addition to that, you'll have access to emotional healing sessions, sound healing, hypnosis, health coaching. Plus, you get access to thousands of different programs covering everything from anxiety to relationships. And you also get access to hundreds of different coaches and therapists from all around the world, all in one single app. Truthfully, I have never seen so many incredible resources offered in a single place. And if you're looking for something that can help you improve your meditation life and improve your personal care and wellness routines overall, I think this app is one of the best possible things you can use. So what I want to do right now is give you an opportunity to start a 7-day free trial of the app. If you look in the podcast description below wherever you're listening to this episode right now, you'll find the link to activate your 7-day free trial. When you use that link, you will also get an additional 25% off any membership option you choose once the trial ends. So if you choose to move forward with any of the membership options, which all of them are quite affordable to begin with, you will, in addition to that, get an extra 25% off by going through the link I have in the description. Best part about this is that when you activate your free trial, you are supporting the show without going out of your way or doing anything extra to have to do so. So it's a really, really great win-win for everyone. And I hope you take the opportunity to try out this app and get all the amazing benefits that are available to you in it, because I know it is going to impact you. It's something I use for myself. It's something I use with my students in the Inspired Love program. And I really, really want you to be able to access it as well. So at the link in the description, you can start your 7-day free trial. Make sure to go do that. Thanks for being with me today, and let's jump into today's show. Hey everybody, welcome to the Conscious Love Show. Whether you are single, you are in a relationship, or you're healing a broken heart, this show is here to inspire you, to remind you how beautiful, lovable, and amazing you truly are, and to give you the practical tools and insights to navigate from wherever you are right now to the loving relationship that you so deeply want to have. My name is Shane Kohler. I'm a certified transformational coach and trainer with over a decade experience helping people release their trauma and open their hearts to love. I've delivered seminars all over the world, coached thousands of people through my online platforms and programs, and every week I'm coming straight to you with the hottest insights and the best teachers around, bringing you powerful resources and profound conversations to heal your relationship with love, dating, and yourself. I'm so grateful you're here, and if it's your first time, welcome. You can count on me to always show up for you with my very best and a commitment to learn and grow myself so I can serve you to my maximum ability. Thanks so much for tuning into the show. I've got some awesome things planned for you today, so without further ado, let's dive in. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Conscious Love Show. Shane Kohler here with you, and pleasure to be back with you today. And in today's episode, we're going to be looking at how your beliefs show up as a perfect living sculpture in your physical reality. How your most deeply held beliefs about yourself, about other people, about life, about the way things are, about where you fit into this whole crazy mess we're in here, how your deepest held beliefs about all of this are actually being generated as a perfect living sculpture in your physical reality, and that everything you experience is actually a reflection of some belief you hold about yourself. I want to share a really special perspective on this and talk about some of the lies that we live under, some of the lies that are woven into our culture, some of the lies that are woven into our upbringing, and how these lies end up becoming belief systems that we operate from that are then manifested as, again, a perfect living sculpture in physical reality. And I think the most seductive part about this, and I want to say this going into today's conversation because I think it's important to just really understand this. The most seductive part about this is what you believe to be true about yourself, about life, about God, about the universe, about other people, everything across the board. Whatever you believe to be absolutely true will be manifested around you externally as a perfect living sculpture. And when you experience your beliefs manifested around you, what will happen is it will become concretized. They will be concrete because you first create it, then experience it, and experiencing what you created solidifies the belief. And this is why it becomes really a prison, and it becomes the most seductive thing and the most difficult thing to escape because you are constantly generating a reality around you that is reinforcing the beliefs that you hold, that is continuing to generate the reality, that is continuing to reinforce the belief. And so it creates this never-ending feedback loop. And the more you experience it, the more strongly you believe it. And I would say every human being on the planet is caught up in this in some way to some degree. And the greatest journey of our lives, really, if we're to talk about what we're here to do from a spiritual level, if we're to talk about like the soul journey that we're on, the greatest purpose of our lives is to break free from this never-ending feedback loop. Right? It's to really realize the prison that we've constructed around ourselves, which is really a prison around consciousness, to really wake up to that, to see it, to understand what's happening, and then find our freedom from that. Even as I'm saying this, like, look at your own thoughts around this. Are you sitting there going like, whoa, this is weird. This is BS. This is woo woo out there, crazy stuff. Because even as you look at your own ideas around it, you'll start to see how thick the prison is. You might, if you're anything like me, and I'll just share how I've related to this conversation throughout my life, there's been something inside of me that felt that it was true. There's been something inside of me that felt, yes, there is reality here, there's truth here. And then my rational mind will question it and will doubt it. And I mean, if I were to sit here today and tell you the miracles that I have experienced in my life in terms of synchronicity and manifestation, and like you just can't make that shit up. And like how many times this has been proven to me over and over and over and over and over again. And how many instances in my life I could look to and go, there it is, there it is, there it is, there it is, there it is. And how after all of that, my rational mind will still doubt and will still argue with it. And it shows just how thick the ego is and how thick this prison of consciousness we've built really is. But what's beautiful about this conversation and what I'm going to get into today is that while we live within this prison of consciousness that I'm going to describe today, we do experience a lot of suffering. The prison is built around limiting ideas of ourselves, our unworthiness, our fear, our incapability, our being unwanted by other people, right? These are the things that construct the prison. And when we live inside of the prison, we do experience a lot of suffering. We feel like we're on the outside of our lives, like we can't connect the way we want to. We feel like we're lost. We feel like we're floundering, right? These are the experiences that are generated when we are living inside of this prison of consciousness. But I think what's really beautiful about today's conversation is that the essence of life itself, the essence of what we are, the essence of the universe is really love. And so while within this grand context of love, we can create these little prison experiences along the journey, along the way. When we do find our way out of that, we reawaken to the fact that, it was always love. It is always love. Love was always here. And so while we may experience fear, sadness, suffering along the journey, when we break free of our own cycles of limitation, we ultimately wake up to the reality that all is safe, all is well, all is love, all is beautiful, all is good. And what we're going to talk about today is how to do that, right? How do we break free of this prison of consciousness we've constructed and wake up to the reality that all is love in a real way that we can really experience and have be real and realized for us in our life? So that's what I'm going to be touching on today. And I want to say this This conversation was sparked in part by a book that I read many years ago. I mean, how old was I? I was 26, 25, something like that. But a book I read a long time ago. And this book completely changed my relationship with money, with business, with manifestation. It completely changed the way I thought about making a living, the way I thought about running a business, the way I thought about money, my relationship to it. I'll just share that while I was reading this book, I went about $30,000 into debt. And then within a year, I had paid off 100% of that debt and made it about $30,000 into the positive. And so I share that just to tell you, like, as I was challenging my ideas around money and business and all of these things, this book and my practices with the ideas that the book was laying out was taking me on quite a journey that challenged everything I believed about money my whole life, everything I believed about, again, running a business and earning wealth. And like, this book challenged all my fundamental assumptions about money and wealth, then took me on this incredible journey to show me just how free we really are. You know, when I confronted my fears of going $30,000 into debt and really just allowed myself to go all the way and see how powerful I was, to then turn around and come out of it and $30,000 into the positive within a year. And the reason I share that example is because as I'm leading in today's conversation, I just want to illustrate the kinds of miracles that can take place in our life when we start to operate outside of the lies that we've been told throughout our lives, right? When we start to live outside of the cultural and societal lies that we're all kind of indoctrinated into since birth, and we start to operate on a basis outside of that, life becomes miraculous and magical, and beautiful things can happen. And I shared some of my experiences around money and business, and I want to translate that to some of the experiences around love. But I wanted to start because, as I said, the reason, or what kind of brought up today's conversation, was that I've been revisiting this book, Busting Loose from the Business Game. And I've just, reading it the second time around, I think is always more profound, because especially I've had such a gap of time in between. And as I'm revisiting this book and running it through all my experiences that I've had since the first time I've read it, it just, it brings a whole new level of awareness, and it's really beautiful. I would definitely recommend this book for everybody. It's one of my top 10 books of all time. And that's Busting Loose from the Business Game, in case anybody missed what I was saying. But I want to illustrate, in this book, he says there are 5 primary rules we've been taught are real and etched in stone for playing the business game. And I'm going to share what these rules are. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the similar rules that we've created around love. And I'm going to illustrate how the same thing that he's sharing about business here is also true about love, in the way that most of us relate to love and manifesting a relationship or a partner in our lives. He says there are 5 main business rules. And basically what he's saying is these are lies. These are lies that we have collectively bought into. These are lies that when we get up in the morning, they are strongly ingrained into our belief system. So when we manage our money, when we run our businesses, when we do these things, these are the fundamental lies and underlying assumptions that we are operating from that govern the way we do all of this. And so these are the 5 lies that he says we all live under. 1, you have a limited supply of money to play with, capital. That's the first lie. 2, you have income. 3, you have expenses. So income is money flowing in, expenses is money flowing out, pretty simple. 4, your income must exceed your expenses, resulting in profits, or you lose the game. That's the 4th lie. And the 5th lie is you must maximize, grow, and sustain profits to win. And he's just going to say, I'm just going to read his little paragraph after this. He says, these rules seem obvious, don't they? There's not much to challenge or disagree with, right? And then he says, wrong, as you'll soon see. Right. So what he says is, like, most of us think these rules are obvious, basic, simple, straightforward. There's nothing to question. There's nothing to argue with. It's just the way it is. And what he's demonstrating, and what the entire book goes on to break down, is how each of these rules is actually an illusion. It's a lie that we've bought into, And because we live in these lies, it creates a context of limitation around what's available to us in terms of money and our businesses. And it keeps us living in a context of scarcity. The more true that we believe these lies are, the more scarce we live in terms of business and finance. When my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer, we started making a lot of changes to our lifestyle. And one of the most important changes we made was cutting out coffee. We didn't realize it at the time, but even 1 cup of coffee a day can flood your body with stress hormones and keep you in a consistent state of fight or flight, which we now know is not only a very uncomfortable way to live, but is also a ripe condition for disease to occur. Some of the best coffee substitutes we found were matcha green tea and adaptogenic mushrooms. And these are so amazing because they can offer many of the same benefits that coffee offers, while also helping to regulate your nervous system and adding incredible health benefits. And if you would like to try this for yourself, we've teamed up with this incredible conscious ethical company called Rise. And by using the code ShaneK15, you can save 15% on your entire order. So go ahead, check it out. I know you're going to love it. It's going to taste great. It's going to make you feel even better. And I can't wait to see what you think of it. So check it out in the description below wherever you're listening to this episode, and lots of love. As I was rereading the book, I got to thinking that, we do the same thing with love. And in love, I could be more specific about that. I think love is a big word, but we could say specifically in terms of manifesting a relationship or attracting our dream relationship or our dream partner, right? There are a lot of lies that we live in around that, very similar to the lies that he's illustrating in this book. So what are the lies that we live in around love and partnership? Number 1, there is a special someone out there who will make you happy. Right? So this idea that there's a special someone out there who will make you happy, one of the fundamental lies that we live in around love and partnership. Number 2, you have a limited amount of time to find that person. One of the fundamental lies we live in around love and partnership. Now, even as I'm saying this, even as I'm breaking this down, watch your own mind, watch your own thoughts. You're going, no, that's not a lie. That's true. I know that's true, right? Because the more you argue with this, the more you're revealing the walls of your own prison. And I'm going to go into detail about this. I'm going to break down how these are all actually lies today. But even before I get there, if you just notice your own resistance to even receiving it as a lie, you'll start to see the walls of the prison you're living in. So number 1, there's a special someone out there who will make you happy. Number 2, you have a limited amount of time to find that person. Number 3, there are better people out there who might get to that person first, right? So we're all living in this context of there's someone out there, and when I find them, they're going to make me happy. And I have a limited amount of time to find that person. So I'm like anxious and I feel like I'm running out of time and I'm under the gun and I'm trying to find this person. And then I'm also feeling like there are better people out there that might find the person before me and that person might like them more. Some of us make it so extreme that we say there is only one person, like there is some kind of soulmate for us. Some of us understand that it's not that literal, but we still think that one day we'll find someone who will make us happy. And we're also living under the threat of competition that every time I meet someone that I like or I'm attracted to, there are other people and I'm always losing out to the competition. Number 4, the 4th lie, not everybody finds their person. Now you might go, well, that's not a lie. I know lots of people who haven't found their person, right? So notice the walls of your own prison there, right? Every time you want to argue with this. Number 5, and I came up with 6 of them. This is number 5. To find your person, you must be the most attractive and better than the competition in every way. Now notice the walls of your prison around that. To find your person, you must be most attractive and better than the competition in every way. Well, are there people who maybe were not better than the competition in some way, maybe in other ways, but they were still chosen by the person, right? So there's so many holes that we can poke in all of these when you really start to look at it. And number 6, and this one is very, very seductive. Connection is rare and hard to come by. I know a lot of you feel that one is so true, you'd put a stake in it, right? Like connection is rare and hard to come by. I'm just going to quickly read through these one more time. One, there is a special someone out there who will make you happy. Two, you have a limited amount of time to find that person. Three, there are better people out there who might get to the person first. Four, not everybody finds their person. Five, to find your person, you must be most attractive and better than the competition in every way. And number six, connection is rare and hard to come by. Now, just like in the book, which by the way is written by Richard Scheinfeld, just like in the book, he outlines these 5 rules of business that they're all lies. Well, here I'm outlining 6 rules of love that are also all lies. Now, I just want to go back to the business rules for a moment, because some of you might struggle to even understand how these are lies, right? I'm just going to read them one more time. You have a limited supply of money to play with. You have income, money flowing in. You have expenses, money flowing out. Your income must exceed your expenses, resulting in profits, or you lose the game. You must maximize, grow, and sustain profits to win, right? Those all seem very straightforward. Some of you might be like, how in the hell are those lies? That's the way all businesses run. Well, let's look at a few things. Let's look at Donald Trump, for example. And I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. I think he's a misogynist and a narcissist, and I will not vote for him as president. But that aside, let's just look at him and his businesses and how his casinos and resorts and all of his businesses collectively have filed for bankruptcy 6 times. I looked this up this morning. They've filed for bankruptcy 6 times, and yet he's still a billionaire. Now, again, I'm not saying he's a good person. I'm not saying I condone his behavior or anything, but I'm saying this is a man who understands that the business game does not actually operate along the lines that most of us believe it does. This is a man who understands that those rules are not truths. And you might say, okay, well, if you're a crook, it's easy to beat the business game. Well, okay, let's take another example. Let's take Michael Singer. And some of you may not know who Michael Singer is, but he's the author of The Untethered Soul. He's the author of The Surrender Experiment. Michael Singer built a company called Medical Manager and sold the company to WebMD for $5 billion. In The Surrender Experiment, he tells the whole story of how he tells the whole story of his life, but included in that story is the story of how he created Medical Manager and ultimately everything that happened in order to sell it. He did not at any point in his journey operate on any of these 5 business rules. He spent most of his younger years in meditation, living on a farm in the middle of nowhere in the woods in Florida, and learned how to computer program on a little computer in his cabin in the woods, and then ended up over time building this company that became highly valued and ultimately sold to WebMD. So he did not operate on any of these traditional business rules and still created a company worth $5 billion. I'm giving these examples because I want to give you some really concrete evidence that the beliefs and the rules and the assumptions that we live under in life are not universally true. And if you can understand that they are not universally true in business, you can also begin to understand that they are not universally true in love. So I want to go through each of these and just kind of break down how they're false. Number 1, I'm going through the love lies now. There is a special someone out there who will make you happy. This one, I started with this one because I think it is the essence. This is like the foundational stone in all the love lies. It's something that I've spoken about this so many times on the podcast, and I hate to beat a dead horse with things like this, but I mean, every movie, every song, the things your parents would say, like just all the fantasies that our culture has lived in as long as I've been alive. And I know it's been before that, but I've just observed this throughout my entire life. There is a constant messaging in our culture that love equals happiness. And that is a 100% fucking lie. 100%. And you know this, like how many unhappily married couples are there? They were in love at one point. It didn't equal long-term happiness. Right? In your own experiences of love, how many times have you thought you found it only to find that you came up empty-handed? Right? The idea that love equals happiness is a straight up lie. Love is love. Happiness is happiness. They are 2 distinct things. You can love someone immensely and deeply, and your love for them could actually ruin your life. And love would not equal happiness. If you love the wrong person, I'm saying. You might say, okay, well, if I love the wrong person, of course that's not going to equal happiness. But what if somebody loves me? Well, as a coach, as somebody who coaches groups of people every single week, I know a lot of times that people will have people beating down the doors to love them. And that will make them so uncomfortable they can't even handle it. So no, loving someone and being loved by someone does not equal happiness. It doesn't. It might equal a momentary gratification. It might equal an excitement. It does not equal happiness. Even if you meet your ideal partner, you fall madly in love with each other, you get married, you commit to spending the rest of your lives together, both of you are going to have to personally work to create your own happiness every single day. And if you don't, you will become miserable and it will destroy the love that you once had. And I know even as I say that, all of you listening right now are like, yep, I get that. You're right. 100%. I've seen that. I've experienced that. I know that. You're absolutely right about that. But even as you hear me say this, and even as you acknowledge the truth of it, notice how your mind is still addicted to the idea that love is the answer. Just notice how insidious that is. Notice how deeply ingrained that is. Now, you have a limited amount of time to find that person. Lie number 2. This one is a little tricky because to a degree, we all have a limited amount of time. We're all going to die. We're all on borrowed time here. You know, if you meet someone at age 50 and maybe you spend 30 years together, that's less time than if you met them at age 20 and you spent, what would that be? 80 minus 60 years together, right? So it seems logically as though there is a very concrete thing called time that you either have or you don't. And that every day that goes by, we have less time than we did before. And you might say, Shane, how can you possibly convince me that that's a lie? This is where you're going to need to have a little bit more of an open mind. Some of you may already be there, some maybe not. But there is a lot of scientific evidence to back up what I'm saying. Like, this isn't just coming from nowhere. Time as an experience is something that is created in our consciousness. Now, I understand we have calendars that track the passing of the months. We have clocks that track the passing of the hours, and we can watch time going by in a very concrete way. As I'm speaking to you right now, I have a timer on my screen that is counting up the seconds and the minutes. So the illusion is that time is a very concrete thing and that it's passing every moment and that you either have more or less of it, and that's all there is. And the illusion is very convincing. I'm not going to lie about that. But how many of you know you've had days in your life that have gone by like that? Like this day flew by, like I don't even know what happened. I woke up, I blinked, and it was over. And you've had days in your life that just dragged on and on and on and on, like they would never end. We've all had that, right? There's not a single person who hasn't experienced both. And so while it seems that time is very concrete, the experience of time is something that we create in our consciousness. I'll take it a step further. When you are present with somebody, when you are really present, when you are in the moment with another human being, you enter into a timeless space with them, where there's actually an experience in which it seems as though time is passing very quickly while simultaneously you have all the time in the world. And there is a timeless experience that can be created in consciousness where essentially you could spend an infinite amount of time with someone. And we often do that in our relationships. Like I think about how my wife will just sit and end up in a conversation on the couch for just like hours and hours and hours. And yes, hours are passing by, but we're in a timeless experience. We're just present. We're We're not feeling that we're running out of time. We're not feeling that, oh, do we have to get to something? We're just enjoying the moment, present in an experience together. In that sense, you might say, well, if I meet someone at 50, I have a lot less time with them than if I met them at 30. Well, I think that depends a lot on the experience of time that you create in your consciousness with that person. There are a lot of people that get married at 20, 25 years old, start making babies, start jumping into their careers, hustling, raising kids, going from this thing to that thing to the other thing, rushing through their whole lives, and they never have a present moment with their partner in 60 years of marriage. And then there are people who are together for a relatively short amount of time, but experience an incredible amount of presence together. You ask yourself, who had more time with the person? I mean, that's up for debate. And so this idea that you have a limited amount of time to find the person, the idea that if you somehow meet them later in life, you've missed out, where we could say that maybe if you met the person later in life, you actually gained the advantage of having all those single experiences that someone who met earlier in life would have missed out on. You actually gained the privilege and the pleasure of getting to explore life as a single person and explore different relationships and explore all different kinds of things, and being able to travel or being able to focus on your career or being able to do whatever you wanted to do in all those years that you were single. And then if you meet someone later in life, but you get to experience the exact same quality of relationship and presence with them, then you really didn't miss out on anything. You just gained something. You just gained additional experience that you would have missed out on. So this idea that there's a limited amount of time, what it does is it takes us out of the reality that life is an experience that's being created in our consciousness, right? We take the power outside of ourselves. We put the power in the calendar or in the clock. And we say, I'm not creating this experience. The experience is being created by the clock. And I'm just at mercy of the clock. And then you start to live in this relationship of anxiety, to feel that you're always running out of time, to feel that you're not getting to where you need to be in the right amount of time, to feel that life is leaving you behind and you're always trying to catch up. And like I said at the beginning of this podcast, the more you believe that, the more you manifest experience to validate that, which then concretizes the beliefs, makes them more solid, more concrete, which then leads you to believe it more strongly. And so many of us are living in the experience that we're running out of time. We're not getting to where we need to be. We're missing out on things. We're not having all the experiences we need to have, feeling like we're at the mercy of the clock and the calendar in our lives, not recognizing that this is a persistent experience that we are creating in our consciousness moment after moment after moment after moment, rather than being present to everything that is in our lives now. We are constantly creating the experience of focusing on what is not present in our lives, of focusing on what we are missing out on, of focusing on what we don't have, of what we can't get a hold of, the fear and the feelings that are associated with that. And then we persistently recreate that experience moment after moment after moment after moment after moment to create the illusion that we have a limited amount of time and we are running out. I know that can be a tough one to accept for people, as probably all of these can be, right? But you know from your own experience that you have the power to move time slowly, and you have the power to move time quickly. Every single person on the planet has experienced themselves doing both of those things at some point in their life. Now, you may be disconnected from the fact that you are actually doing that. You may feel that it's happening to you. But that just it means there's another level of your own awareness in terms of your own experience of yourself and your creative ability. Number 3, there are better people out there who might get to the person first. Now, again, this can seem like a very, very concrete reality. This lie, I mean, this is something like if we think back to like high school and middle school, This is something a lot of us experienced pretty potently, right? Where there's the person that I might be attracted to, I might want their interest, and there are other people. And there's this competition happening. There's this feeling that that I might get the attraction of someone and then someone else might come in and swoop it away from me. When we experience something with a degree of pain associated with it, it intensifies the memory or the feeling or the belief in it, right? So a lot of us have probably had an experience, and honestly, probably like our initial experience of this was when we were quite young, right? Like our initial experience of this was probably in grade school or middle school or high school. And it might not have even been that, oh, I was dating someone and then someone came and swooped them from me. It might have been just having a crush on someone and watching that person be attracted to other people and feeling like, oh, that person would never like me. I bring up the younger examples because I want to illustrate how early on we start believing this lie. Right? I want to illustrate at what a young time in our lives we experience the pain of this lie. And whenever we experience pain around something, we attach to it because we want to protect ourselves from it. And so again, if you imagine yourself even in grade school, and maybe there was someone in the class that you were attracted to, and it seemed as though that person was more attracted to other people in the class. And that's painful, right? Because that brings up all our greatest fears of I'm not enough, I'm inadequate, I'm not wanted, I'm not lovable, right? That this brings up all of our deepest fears. Because this is bringing up all of our deepest fears, we attach to this idea very strongly and we say, this is very real. This is very scary. This is something I need to pay attention to. It's something I need to look out for. It's something I can't let happen. And so we start to be on guard. And the more on guard we are, the more real this idea is to us. And so if you think about how insidious this idea is, and I mean, this idea shows up in love. It also shows up across the board, right? In our careers, oh, there's someone better who's going to get the promotion or steal the job, or just in life in general, right? There's someone who's more attractive, more successful, more capable, more intelligent, right? Always, so many of us like live in this constant comparison of, am I as good as the person next to me? Am I as capable? Am I as intelligent? Am I as creative? Do I make as much money? Whatever, right? We live in this constant comparison. And so, of course, it's going to be there in our love lives. How could it not be? We live with this fear and this constant comparing and feeling left out and feeling like, oh, I'm not good enough, or it's not going to happen. And you might be asking, okay, how is this a lie? Right? Tell me how this one is a lie. Again, I think it's a lie in the sense that it takes us out of the idea that we are creating our own experience in our consciousness. My wife and I, from the time we started the living relationship, we started it with this idea in mind that was something that we both intuitively came into on our own as single people. And then, in conversation in our relationship, it came up. And it just started to become a tenet of what we teach and what we're all about. And the idea is that if I have a dream in my heart, if I have, something in my soul that is like real and alive and true, it's just as real as anything else in the world, right? If I have a dream of love or a dream of partnership, or a dream of like anything that is like just as real to me as anything else is, just because it's not a physical object doesn't make it less real, right? Like when I think of my dream of partnership or my dream of a family or my dream of a home, right? Like that is as real as anything else in the universe. Just because it's not an object doesn't make it unreal. If I have that and it's that real, then it just makes sense that there would be a way for that to come into being. Hey there, if you've made it this far in the episode, then I want to jump in with a special invitation for you. You've probably heard me mention Inspired Love at least once or twice on the show, and Inspired Love is my private coaching program. It's the culmination of over 15 years of healing work, and we have recently reopened the program for enrollment. Through an in-depth exploration in all four dimensions of human experience, that's body, mind, emotion, and spirit, the process allows you to bring balance to anxious, avoidant, or disorganized patterns, to heal and somatically release childhood trauma, to grow spiritually, and to approach intimate relationships from a healthy, emotionally regulated, and secure place. Our students commonly report that they have never seen anything quite this comprehensive. While many teachers offer courses to improve relationship skills or heal insecure attachment styles, it's rare to find something that works in all dimensions of your being. And I specifically designed the program this way because in my experience, any true healing process must address all of these elements to have any real chance of success. I know what it feels like to crave love on the deepest levels, while simultaneously feeling unworthy or hopeless around it. I know the fear of struggling in relationships and doubting they will ever work out for you. I watched my mother suffer in and out of 4 abusive marriages. I have 4 sisters and I've watched them struggle. I've been through it myself. I know that lack of love can be one of the most painful and lonely experiences, and I created this program because I know a way out of that, and I'm inspired to share it with others. Now, I don't know if this is the right thing for you or not. What I do know is it's changed the lives of so many people, and it continues to do so on a weekly basis. So if you're ready for a big change in your love life, and you're ready to get the most out of your life overall and stop wasting time, in the description below this episode, you can book a free call with another graduate of the program. She can tell you how it's changed her life and share how it might be helpful for you. If it feels right, jump in with us. If not, don't. But don't ignore this opportunity when it could make all the difference in the world for you. Go ahead, book your free intro call at the link in the description, and thanks for listening today. If you are tuned in, if you are connected, you can know truth when it touches you. And when you're connected to truth in a real way, you don't need that to be validated. Something speaks to you inside of your soul, and you know the truth of it because of what you feel around it. And that's the kind of truth that people can't talk you out of. People can't convince you otherwise. People can't call it bullshit. Like, it's something that you know with everything that you are. And what I want to say is that when we're talking about breaking free from the prison of consciousness that we've created for ourselves, every great person in history who has done that has believed a truth inside of them strong enough to put that above what the external evidence showed them. And I mean, if you look at someone like Gandhi or someone like Martin Luther King, right? Like, you look at these people who were able to create massive change in the world by holding on to a truth they found inside of themselves when all of the evidence in the world said that it couldn't be done and it couldn't happen. These are people who found a greater truth inside of themselves and brought it out into the world to demonstrate that it actually could be done. Like, I understand that the lies I'm talking about right now are very believable. We've created an entire world around them. Of course they're believable. But if you search your own soul, you can find a truth that is greater than this. If I take myself and my wife as an example, and I look at our story and this idea that we were connected to, that like this love that we were seeking is something that was available and something we could have. And all the evidence to the contrary didn't matter. All the manipulative games we had experienced, all the heartbreak we had experienced, all the rejection, all the trauma from our past, all of it. Like, yeah, there was a lot of evidence that said, oh, this can't happen, or, oh, it's going to be hard, or, oh, it's impossible, or you can't trust people, or people aren't like this, or, there was a lot of evidence to that. And my wife and I, like, God bless both of us for whatever reason. And I don't even know for sure how we got here, but in our own way, we both got here to the place where we said, despite all the evidence, there's a truth inside of me that says something greater. And there's a truth inside of me that says, I can find my person. And it's not about competing with everyone and being the best out there. It's not about any of that. But it's really just about me being the most authentic version of myself. And it's really just about me, like, being myself and loving fully and truly and putting the best of myself out in the world and finding someone who resonates with that. And this is a truth that I have been working with clients to embody for years, and it proves true time and time and time and time and time and time again. Like, I just can't tell you how many people I have seen create amazing, deep, passionate, loving relationships doing nothing more than following their passion and being the most authentic version of themselves. Like, this truth supersedes all the pickup games and all the strategies and all the say this way, do this, be better, be more attractive. Like, this supersedes all of that. Now, number 4, not everybody finds their person. Not everybody finds their person. This is a lie. Again, you can say, like, of course not everybody finds their person. My aunt died alone, never got married. Like, I know for a fact that she didn't find her person. How can you tell me this is a lie? So let me acknowledge that some people don't find their person. What makes this a lie is the randomness through which we assume that happens. The randomness through which we assume that people don't find their person. And this is where I want to touch on, and I've been touching on it the whole time, but I want to use the exact language now, where I touch on that our reality, our life experience is a reflection of our most deeply held beliefs and assumptions. And your life will always reflect your most deeply held beliefs and assumptions. And when you see your life experience reflecting your most deeply held beliefs and assumptions, you will say, see, I knew they were true. And that's the prison, right? That is the prison. Because the more you say, see, I knew they were true, the more strongly you believe them. And so not everybody finds their person. And those of us who are on our journey, and those of you who may be out there right now wanting to manifest or create a loving relationship, and you may be seeking that person. And you may be looking at your aunt who died alone, or you may be looking at whoever in the world or in your life, and you may be going, I don't want to end up like them. And you're afraid that you might. And the lie in that is that you are powerless about that. The lie in that is that there wasn't a specific process that your aunt went through for years and years and years and years and years that led to that exact result. That result of her dying alone was a specific creation of her consciousness that was done intentionally, albeit maybe unconsciously. But it wasn't an accident that her life turned out that way. In fact, it is never an accident that anybody's life ever turns out the way it turns out. Everybody's life is a creation in their consciousness. This is a tough reality to acknowledge for some of us. And like, I'll share this because my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. She went through chemotherapy, right? Like that's in our experience, that's the toughest thing we've been through recently. This is a couple years ago. And you might say, how can you say that if that happened to your wife? Right? How can we say that we are creating experiences in our consciousness? Why would somebody ever create that experience if they had another option? And that leads to a fundamental misinterpretation of what life is all about. Because when my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer, and when she went through chemotherapy and went through everything that goes with that, and all of that happened, when all of that happened, something that happened corresponding to that, congruently to that, alongside of that, was the prison that my wife and I had been living in, the prison of consciousness that we had created and been living in for our lives up until that point. In so many ways, I mean, more ways than I can even count, or even like in all the ways that I think it happened, I understand it happened in even more ways that I can't even fully realize. The prison that we had been living in, the prison of consciousness that we created and had been living in, actually broke down in so many ways for both of us during that time. And you might say, oh my God, like, why would somebody ever create that experience for themselves? Well, if it's leading to deeper freedom, I'll just say, like, our relationship is better than it's ever been because of that. Our relationship got to places it never would have gotten otherwise. That's one of the rewards. Personally, there are rewards. I mean, there are so many rewards. And there are challenges too. I'm not saying it was easy. I'm not saying that it's not still challenging in many ways. But the assumption that we're never supposed to go through challenges in life, or that when we do experience challenges in life, that something has gone wrong, that's a misunderstanding of what life is all about, of the purpose of it, of what we're here to do, of what's really happening in this creation of consciousness that we're all experiencing here. And so the idea that not everybody finds their person is leading you to believe that you are at the mercy of events, rather than leading yourself on a profound journey of, yes, loss, but also gain, of suffering, but also joy, and everything that is included in that. And we could say, like, if it's in your heart, if it's in your soul to have a long-term, committed, loving, deep marriage or relationship or whatever that looks like for you, if that's in your heart, if that's in your soul, then we could say there is a way of manifesting that. And if I'm just to share our journey, the path to that might lead you through some difficult places, like cancer, for example, or like a divorce, or like all different kinds of things. If you are willing to go all the way, if you are willing to go through all the experiences, as high as it will take you and as low as it will take you, you can manifest anything. If there are places you are not willing to go, if there are places where you're like, no, I just can't handle that, places within yourself where you're not allowing yourself to go, things you're unwilling to feel, difficult realities you're unwilling to be with, then you're going to attach to these lies as a way of justifying your unwillingness to go there, as a way of validating your fear. You're going to say, some people just don't find their person. I guess I'm one of those people. And then you will believe the lie. You will be right about the lie. You will be validated by the lie. The lie will justify your lack of creating whatever it is you truly wanted to create in your life. And you'll have a perfect valid excuse for why you never did it. Didn't have the time, didn't have the opportunity, didn't have blah, blah, blah. But if you're willing to really go all the way, you can see that it's all a lie. you can see that there truly is no limitation on what you want to experience. Now I've got two more. And number 5 is to find your person. You must be the most attractive and better than the competition in every way. Now that one is admittedly quite similar to number 3. There are better people out there who might get to the person first. So in the interest of time, because we're coming up on an hour now, I'm just gonna say that a lot of what I said about number 3 can also apply to number 5. I think there are subtle differences, but I don't want to take too much time to get into the subtle differences. But I want to jump straight to number 6. Connection is rare and hard to come by. Because this is a lie that I know for a fact so many of us think is true. And it's actually one of the easiest ones to prove false. Ironically, it's one of the ones we believe the most, and it's one of the easiest ones to prove false, is that connection is rare and hard to come by. And most of us are living in our lives feeling like the kinds of connections I'm looking for are very rare, are very scarce. I never experience them. And then when I do experience it, it's like the holy grail. It's like, oh my God, I got to hold on to it at all costs because I never experience a connection like this. That is an absolute lie. Now, I understand the experience of that may not be a lie, right? Like I know a lot of people that is a very real lived experience. But I'll say, like, for example, in my Inspired Love program, I see the exact opposite all the time. I mean, I see people manifesting very rich connection very easily a lot of times. I see people who have spent years not being able to connect with anybody, all of a sudden feeling like people are hitting me up from all over the place. I don't even know where it's coming from, right? Like I see people who have like not even really put themselves out there, but they've gotten into a new meditation practice, and all of a sudden people are blowing them up on social media, asking them out on dates, right? And they're like, I haven't even put myself out there. All I did was start meditating and setting new intentions, and now people are hitting me up on social media, asking me out on dates. And again, I'm not saying that it works the same way for everyone every time. I think everybody has a very unique journey. Everybody is creating very unique things in their own experience. But my point in getting to this is that there is a limitlessness in terms of the potential that's available, in terms of what we can potentially create in our experience. There is an unlimited nature to that. And the degree to which we buy into limiting beliefs, the degree to which we buy into limiting ideas, determines the amount of limitation we actually have in our experience. Now, if we're looking at the idea that connection is rare and hard to come by, what I want to say about that is most of us have closed down our ability to connect deeply with other people. Most of us have closed down our emotional availability. And this is a result of many different types of trauma. The most obvious being if we were abused in some way or neglected in some way. And, you know, if something like that happened to you, especially at a very young age, there's a tendency to become less emotionally available. And the reason you become less emotionally available when that happens is because this isn't complicated. You've learned that that's painful. And so you become less emotionally available, and then therefore you experience less pain. That's not a complicated idea at all. But I want to talk about some of the other forms of trauma that close down our ability to connect. I remember an experience when I was in 6th grade. There was a girl named Christina in my class. And, you know, I to this day, I mean, I haven't talked to her in years, but to this day, I have like just a deep love for this person because she's just a beautiful soul. I remember her from then, and she was just a beautiful soul. And like in 6th grade, I had a crush on her. And I remember, like I asked her out and we were like boyfriend, girlfriend. I mean, this is very innocent. You know, I don't even think I ever kissed her, but, you know, we were like boyfriend, girlfriend, and I asked her out and everything. I remember there were some other girls in my class that were, I guess, by traditional standards, you would consider like more objectively pretty or more what most of the boys were into. And I I remember experiencing a degree of peer pressure to break up with her and date some of these other girls, which I ultimately gave into. I'm not proud to say, but I ultimately gave into. And I remember later in the year actually questioning that decision and saying, you know what? I really liked Christina. I want to date her again. And letting one of my friends talk me out of it. And I bring up this example because I think that is one of the ways that I limited my own connection. And we generally think of like we shut down connection when we are traumatized. We also shut down connection around judgment. When we judge other people, that limits our ability to connection. When we fear judgment, that limits our ability to connect. And I think something that has happened is we've all been raised in a society in which there are very obvious special people. In the big world and in our adult lives, these are the celebrities, right? We have celebrities of different stature, and these are the special people. They're the people who are on top of the world, the people that we tend to idolize or look up to, want to emulate. And then even in like when we're growing up, there's a microcosm of that in our schools where you have the popular kids or the attractive kids or the football players or the drama, performers and all these different sects. And what this culture of special people creates is this sense that some people are more deserving of love and attention than others. And whether you were the popular kid or not, whether you are a celebrity or not, like we have all internalized this, right? So we tend to think that, oh, the popular kids or the celebrities, they have it all. And us common people, we don't have it. That's actually not true. The celebrities are in just as much of a toxic situation as everybody. We have all internalized this, and it has led to a perceived sense of inadequacy in every single human being on the planet. And it has caused us to shut down our ability to connect, where rather than being available to the connection that is all around all the time, we have limitations that say, I can only connect with people who look a certain way. I can only connect with people who follow certain trends. I can only connect with people who fit into certain stereotypes. I can only connect to people who fit in with certain circles of people. I can only connect with people who dress a certain way or think a certain way or believe certain things or hold certain values, or on and on and on and on and on and on and on it goes. But connection as an essence is something that could literally be present between every single person on the planet at all times. And the degree to which we have fragmented our ability to connect and put conditions on that, and that has been multiplied and multiplied and multiplied and multiplied through the generations. It has created such a complex web of disconnection that when we actually find a window through which we feel like we can connect to somebody, it seems very rare and very scarce. But you've got to understand it only appears to be that way and feels that way because of this intricate web of disconnection that we have woven throughout our lives. Now, to just take that one small step further, by disconnecting from the external noise, which would be the societal values that are largely held by the majority of our society, the trends and stereotypes and specialness and conditions and comparison and, oh, well, we like these people for these reasons and these people for these reasons and on and on and on. If you were to disconnect from all of that and kind of isolate in your own little world for a period of time and really work on expanding your heart center. And to be a little more clear about what I mean when I say that, I mean expanding your capacity for appreciation and gratitude, your capacity to feel at peace and joyful, and in a way to be able to see the perfection in all of life, and to be able to see the beauty and the wonder, and to be able to feel a sense of like childlike wonder about life, to be able to connect to the deeper essence of yourself and life as a whole that's happening underneath all the noise that's out there. If you were to disconnect from most of the noise that's in the world and deepen your capacity to open your heart in all of those respects that I just mentioned, you would start to experience a capacity for connection unlike anything you've ever known. And I say this as somebody who, I'll share this. This may sound a little strange, but actually I would invite everybody to do this exercise. And this is something I started to do one day when I was driving in my car. And I would look at all the people either walking down the street or in the other cars as I would pass them, or when I'm sitting in traffic, I'd look at the people next to me. And I realized in this very mysterious way that every single person looked familiar. And I would challenge every one of you who hear this to try this yourself. I realized that every single person looked familiar. Like I literally, when I took a moment to let in the person I was looking at, I could say, I feel like I've seen that person before. Now, maybe some of them I had, and maybe some of them I hadn't. Of course, I hadn't literally seen all of those people before. But what I'm getting at here is there's a familiar quality that all human beings have. There's a recognition that when we disconnect from the superficial stuff that runs our lives and runs our consciousness the majority of the time, there's an intuitive recognition that we have with every single person on the planet. And that is our ability for connection. Now, of course, I understand there are narcissists out there. There are sociopaths. Like, you don't necessarily want to open yourself up to a deep level of connection with every person in the world. And this is where you need to have standards and boundaries, and you need clear communication, and you need some basic skills that allow you to protect yourself in intimate relationships, right? And so like, I get that. And I'm not saying that you want to deeply connect with every single human being on the planet. But what I am saying is there is the potential for connection with every single human being on the planet. And we have created an intricate web of disconnection that makes most of us, almost all of us, feel that that's not the case. And my point here, and what I'm really getting at, is when you open up your ability to tap into that connection, you will start to find that connection is very, very much readily available all around you all the time. And what you'll start to see is that when you learn to leverage your ability to connect to people, and you stop making it about, I think they're sexy, I think they're hot, I want a relationship with them, they're the kind of person I want to marry. When you stop making it about that, and you start allowing your natural capacity for connection to just connect when and where it feels right, and it feels natural, and it feels good, and it feels healthy, and you don't have these barriers to connection that you're living in. I'm not saying you're going to fall in love with every single person you meet, but what I am saying is you will have real, deep connections with a lot of the people that you meet. I'm not saying they're going to be romantic or sexual necessarily, but what will start to happen in your consciousness is you will start to feel how available connection is. Not like an idea, but like a lived experience that's alive inside of your body. You will start to feel, oh, I could connect with that person. I could connect with that person. I could connect with anyone. And what starts to happen inside of you is you start to feel that there is an abundance of connection. And then what starts to happen is you start to literally attract higher quality connection and the type of connection that you want to into your life, because you are living in a more connected vibrational state, which means the other people in the world who are living in that connected vibrational state are going to be more likely to enter your experience more frequently. and you're going to have a stronger resonance with them when they do enter your experience because now you are more on their level. Whereas in the past, maybe they did enter your experience, but you didn't vibe with them because you were at different vibrational levels. Where they were a little more connected, you were a little more disconnected. I would even challenge you to look at your life and see, do you know people like this? Do you know people, or have you seen people who can walk into a room and connect with everybody there? And it seems like even if they're not the, quote, sexiest person or most physically attractive person in the world, that people seem to be attracted to them. There's an energy about them that people like. They make people feel good. People feel safe with them. People feel at home. They bring people joy, right? And so there is a connected energy that they embody, that they carry with them everywhere they go. And people respond to that. And people like that often, I mean, sometimes they have intimacy issues that, block them in other ways, but often people like that don't struggle to find healthy relationships because they know and they feel there is an abundance of connection. And so if one connection ends, they go, okay, there's going to be another one. I think this was one of my biggest personal transformations, where I lived a life that was very disconnected. And some of you know about my history. I mean, I lived with an abusive, narcissistic, drug addict, alcoholic father. I was addicted to drugs at the age of 13 years old. I mean, I sold drugs all through my teens. I went to jail for 2 years when I was 18. I got out of jail, got into recovery. Like I had to build my life from the ground up at age 21, starting with nothing. And I came from a very dark world, a very toxic world, a world where like my friends would steal shit from me and then help me look for it, right? Like that's the kind of world I came from. And so when I started getting into healing work, I got into drug and alcohol recovery. I got into different forms of transformation and personal development. My barriers and my levels of disconnection were intense. I remember I went into a training, the training that ultimately was one of the biggest trainings that changed my life. And I ultimately became a trainer for that company and ended up traveling the world delivering trainings for this company. When I sat in there, my first 4 days in the training, I sat there with my arms crossed like this, thinking the whole thing was a scam. Like that's the level of disconnection that I came into it with. Fortunately, I found that training and it was one of the big things that helped me open up. But I say all that to say that one of the biggest transformations that I went through personally was going from a world of complete disconnection and complete isolation to a world of actually feeling an abundance of connection, where like I would literally show up to parties that maybe a friend invited me to or someone in my community invited me to, and I didn't know anyone there. And I would walk in and just walk up to strangers like, hey, how you doing? Who do you know? Oh, cool. Yeah, I met them too. And like, great. Where are you from? And I've often shared this, but when it comes to dating, and like, I'm not somebody, when I was dating, like I wasn't like freaking Don Juan, like women were not into me in that way. And I'm okay with that. Like that doesn't bother me, but that was just the reality of my experience. And I got to a point where I got comfortable. This is after a lifetime of like being the guy who wasn't chosen, the guy who was friend zoned, the nice guy, like all that shit. After a lifetime of that stuff, I got to the point where I could go into a party or an event or wherever I was, find any woman in the room that I was attracted to, walk up, start a conversation with her and ask her on a date. And I'm not saying like a pickup artist. It wasn't like that. It was like totally authentic. Like just, hey, you look awesome. Who are you? Who do you know here? Who invited you? Great. Where are you from? Cool. Like, and I say that to say that was such a huge transformation for me. Feeling disconnected my whole life, feeling unwanted my whole life, feeling like I wasn't the kind of guy that women wanted my whole life, feeling like I was set back in love or that I was struggling in love, right? Like this was what defined my experience my whole life. And I was able to completely transcend that. And I only share that to just simply share with you any limiting idea that you have believed about yourself, about love, about relationships is actually a lie. It's actually a lie. And if you could just start there and start to understand that every belief that you hold will be manifested in your experience. And when it is manifested in your experience, it will cause you to believe it more strongly. And the consistent feedback loop of creating things and believing them and creating them and believing them is what creates a prison of consciousness in which we feel trapped and we feel limited and we feel like we can't escape. I want to leave you with the idea that every limiting idea is a lie. But whether it's true or not doesn't stop it from becoming a belief. And whether a belief is true or not does not stop it from being manifested as an experience in your creation. And so what I'm getting at here is inviting each of us to have enough courage to challenge every limitation. And that can be a scary thing because so many of the things that give us our identity, that make us feel real, that make us feel like we exist, are limiting, right? Like so many of the things that make up who we believe we are limiting ideas. And when you start to really question all of your limitations, you may start to feel like you don't even know who you are anymore. You may start to feel like you don't even know what's real anymore. It can be a very disorienting experience. And as somebody who's been through this many times and is currently going through it again, like it is a very disorienting experience. But what I've learned time and time again as I've gone through these cycles in my life is that they always open up to another level of expansion and another level of greatness and another level of possibility. Most of us have come to believe that life is objectively a certain way and that there's no changing that and that we have to just do our best with the way it is. And if you live in that to any degree, that's soul crushing and that's imprisoning. Life is very much 100% what you make it to be. Life is very much 100% what you make it to be based on the beliefs that you choose to hold as truth in your consciousness. And there is no limitation to how grand and expansive it can become when you are willing to let go of any and all limitations that you cling to. So today I went through some of the basic lies that we hold around love and relationship and partnership and just kind of our search for love. And I hope today's conversation has not only just given you some new perspective on love and what's possible in terms of love and relationship, but I hope this conversation has given you a greater perspective on who you are as a being. This limited human identity that has been informed by trauma and fear and limitation and being blocked or being left out or missing out on experiences in your life and being rejected and being afraid and being hurt, right? This limited identity that was created through all that stuff is not who you are. And I hope today in this conversation that you have gotten a glimpse of who you might be if that identity were to disintegrate. And I'm going to leave you with that. I'm going to leave you with that today. So I just want to say, sending so much love to all of you. Thank you for tuning in to today's conversation. To my live listeners on YouTube and Podbean, thank you for being with me live. I really appreciate that. Pleasure to have you on here as always. I'll be back here next Tuesday. Sending big love to you, and we'll see you then. Take care, everybody. Bye. Thanks again for checking out the show. Please subscribe on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on the most. And I would love it so much if you leave a review and tell people what you think of us. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram @TheLivingRelationship to connect more closely. And I'm grateful to be supporting you on your journey to love.